All right, good afternoon, folks. If you could find a place to take a seat, we'd like to get started. Okay. Well, it's great to see everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our campus at Calvin University. It's a great day here in the fall, and it's wonderful to have all of our students back on campus. I was telling somebody earlier about my experience in the spring. We had commencement on a Saturday, and things were just jumping, right? The 2 or 3 weeks before commencement. And then I arrived at work on Monday morning after commencement at 7:15, and it was a ghost town, right? It was really tough in the summertime. I thrive on being around people, so summertime was tough. So it's great to have students and faculty and staff and all of you as guests here on campus. My name is Greg Elzinga. I serve as the interim president here at Calvin, and it's our pleasure to host you here today, and we hope that this time that we have together is an encouragement to you both personally, professionally, and of course spiritually too, as we come together as a business community and business leaders. Here at Calvin, we see evidence of God's faithfulness in so many different ways this fall as we start this new semester and this new academic year. We've had the privilege of welcoming, I think what some of you have heard is our largest incoming class of new learners in over a decade. 1,232. Yes, 1,232 new students to Calvin at all different levels. We've had 972 incoming freshmen and transfers. Our graduate programs continue to grow as well. So we see God at work in amazing ways, and our team is working so hard, very intentionally and strategically, to attract more young men and women to want to come here and study at Calvin. Another cause for celebration is just this week. In fact, in the last 36 hours, U.S. News and World Report released their annual rankings of colleges and universities, and Calvin ranked number 1 in undergraduate teaching for regional universities. A lot to be thankful for, and number 2 as the most innovative among regional universities. So it's really a testimony to our faculty, our staff, our entire campus community, and to you as well. You challenge us to be better. You challenge us to do things differently, in many ways to keep Calvin the amazing institution always has been for soon to be 150 years next year, but to constantly look at how we do what we do in new and relevant ways to better serve the world and the students that come here. So we're very excited for that. And I also want to take this opportunity to just thank each of you for investing in our students, in our mission, through financial support, through internships, through mentoring relationships, through employment opportunities. We can't do this work without each and every one of you, and I just want to let you know how deeply grateful we are for your partnership and your presence here today. So it's now my privilege to welcome our campus pastor, Mary Halst, who is going to lead us in an opening prayer.
Let's pray together. Creator God, you have made us in your image, and we give you thanks. In your image, we dream, create, and build. We plan and strategize and hope. And sometimes we fail. We focus on ourselves and not on you. We view others as instruments and not image bearers. We thank you that in your mercy, through Jesus Christ, you pick us up, you forgive us, and you invite us to try again. In this room, we have image bearers who are leaders and followers, planners and doers, those who love numbers and those who love numbers. We thank you that doing good business is doing kingdom work. We pray that we may all listen to your voice above all other voices, to honor you in all that we do. We thank you for the partners in this room. We pray that you guide our conversations, Holy Spirit, that continued to strengthen our networks with each other. Continue to build your kingdom in this place. Thank you for this food and all who will prepare it and all who will serve it. And we ask this all in the name of our Jesus, and all God's people say, amen. Enjoy your meal.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted that you are enjoying your conversations at your tables, and I wish we could keep them going. But it's time now to sort of move into the program for the afternoon. My name is Jim Ludema, and I'm Dean of the School of Business here at Calvin University, and I want to welcome you all to this Calvin Business Partners Award Luncheon. I want to start by thanking a few people who have made this event possible. First is the great staff here at the Prince Conference Center who have given us a great meal and great service. Let's give them a big round of applause. Second are our 16 table sponsors and our 2 event sponsors, In On Time and the Calvin Center for Innovation in Business. Thank you very much for your support. Third is the team here at Calvin who has organized this event and is making it run so smoothly. And they include Bob Ames, Kristen Groom, Ann Gertner, Elena Gill, Elizabeth Harvey, our photographer, Johnny Quirin, and our tech guy, Michael Klingenberg. Let's give them a great big round of applause as well. And finally, I just want to thank all of you, as President Elzinga did earlier, for all of the support that you give to our students and to Calvin University. In the School of Business, we pride ourselves on what we call experiential education, helping our students learn business by doing business. And it's because of you that we can do that. You help our students learn business by doing business, by coming to speak in our classes, by mentoring our students, by opening the doors to your companies for CAP projects and internships, and of course by hiring our graduates. So thank you very much for that. And if you're not comfortable clapping for yourself, clap for the other people in this room who do that. Thank you. And now, before getting into the awards for today and before introducing Jim Keene, our keynote speaker, I want to briefly say 3 things about the School of Business. First, I want to share some good news about the School of Business. Second, I want to introduce some new faculty members that we have with us today. And third, I want to tell you about our amazing new redesigned MBA program. So like Calvin University overall, the School of Business remains in a strong growth mode. Thanks to God's grace and to our great faculty, staff, and students, and to strong support from senior administration and alumni and business leaders like yourselves. Our incoming classes have grown significantly over the last 3 years. As you can see on the screen, they grew 13% in 2022, 27% in 2023, and 33% this fall. And this year's class is the biggest incoming class ever in the history of the School of Business at Calvin University. Let's give a little bit of cheer for that as well. Similarly, our total enrollments have also grown. Like all schools, we took a bit of a dip during the COVID years, but we have rebounded beyond pre-COVID levels, and our goal is to hit 1,000 students by 2028, and we also plan to beat that target. All of this growth and a few retirements have created an opportunity for us to hire some new amazing faculty in the last couple of years. And I want to just point them out. They are hired in 2023, Donye Song in accounting, April Van Putten in accounting and management, Nate Weflin in financial planning. And Donye, April, and Nate, if you are here, could you just please stand up and give a wave to the crowd? There's Nate. Donye and April must be teaching. And then for 2024, just coming in this fall, are Suraj Sharma in management, Ron Winowicki in finance, Bernardo Argo in business analytics, and Mark Taylor in business ethics. The four of you, if you are here, could you please stand? Welcome. It's great to have you on board. So there are undoubtedly many reasons for our growth, but one of the big ones is our many innovative programs. We now have 8 majors, 6 minors and certificates, and 2 master's programs. And today I want to tell you just a little bit about our new redesigned MBA program, because we want you to enroll in this program. And if you don't enroll, we want you to tell all of your best friends and family members about it so that they enroll. It's an amazing program. About a year ago, our MBA director, Leonard Van Drunen, along with Bob Ames, the director of our Calvin Center for Innovation in Business, and Ken Tameling, our executive in residence, went to the market using a human-centered design process and interviewed about 100 people and asked them, what do you really want in an MBA program? They said they wanted it to focus on leadership and innovation without sacrificing technical and technology skills so that they could compete in a fast-changing, competitive environment. They said they wanted to be a hybrid program with some online stuff and some face-to-face so that they could fit it into their busy schedules, but also build community, build their networks, and learn from one another. And then they said they wanted our best faculty teaching in this program, faculty with extensive business experience, but also an understanding of leading-edge research and theory. And so that's what Leonard and Bob and Ken and our faculty and our colleagues in the Calvin School for Graduate and Continuing Studies built. The new MBA focuses on leadership and innovation without sacrificing tech skills, some online and some face-to-face elements to fit into the busy schedules, but also promote networking, community, and learning from one another. And it'll be taught by our exceptional faculty with extensive business experience, but also academic chops. So if you're interested in the program, want to enroll or learn more, talk to Leonard Van Drunen. Leonard, could you stand and just wave? Or talk to Bob Ames. I think you all know Bob. Bob, if you could just wave. Ken Tameling, where are you, Ken? Right there at the front table. Kyle Small, our new Dean for Graduate Studies. Kyle, back there. Or any of our faculty who have already stood, or me, if you're interested in the program. And now, it's time to move to our Calvin Business Partner Awards. Oh, I was supposed to have that slide up when I was talking about the MBA program. My mistake. Let's move on to the awards. We are giving 3 awards this year. They are to Dirk Proos, Leonard Van Drunen, and Manor Kosterian. And I want to start with Dirk Proos. Dirk, if you could please come up to the stage. My colleague Marilyn Stansberry will be granting the award, giving the award, but I want to say a few words about Dirk first. Dirk, come on up, Dirk. Dirk is a 1982 graduate of Calvin University who went on to get his MBA from the University of Michigan. After a very successful career working in accounting and the accounting and finance industries, Dirk came back to Calvin and served for a short time as the VP of Advancement. But the financial world called him back. He worked as a senior executive at Goldman Sachs for several years in different parts of the world. and then chose to retire from the world of corporate finance and serve Calvin as a professor, teaching finance, accounting, and our business capstone course. But Dirk is also a program innovator. In addition to teaching and advising students, he created the personal finance curriculum for our Calvin LifeWork program. He helped create and guide our Knight Investment Management student organization. He created the Nexus Peer Financial Coaching Program, and he developed, launched, and directed our accredited Bachelor of Science in Financial Planning program. Dirk works hard, and that's one of the things we love most about him, but he also finds time to invest in his family, his church, his community. As a diving coach, attending his children's sporting events, helping colleagues in the School of Business, and serving on many boards. In fact, just last night, I saw Dirk walking his dog out with the best thing that ever happened to him, his wife, Liesel. Dirk, thank you for all your many contributions to Calvin University and to the Calvin University School of Business, and congratulations on your award. It is very well deserved. Congratulations, Dirk. Much appreciated. Next is Leonard Van Drunen. Oop. Maybe we. There you go. Next is Leonard Van Drunen. Leonard is a graduate of Dordt College and received a PhD in finance from Purdue University and a master's in social policy from the London School of Economics. After a long and successful career with a number of Wall Street investment banks in New York, Tokyo, and London, Leonard chose to come to Calvin University, where he joined the faculty as a professor of finance. Leonard introduced increased rigor to our finance programs, and the students responded well, learning to use finance as better stewards of God's creation and better agents of Christ's love and justice in the world. Stewardship, justice, and love. Those are the themes that Leonard constantly promoted, that finance is all about stewardship, justice, and love. And I see heads nodding all over the room. Leonard wrote about it and influenced the broader field of Christian finance through his work on those three themes in the context of finance. Leonard also formed the Knight Investment Management, a student organization that manages over 2 million of the university's endowment to learn how to research and trade equities. Kim table. So if you want to learn more about Kim, thank you for being here. Leonard and his wife Karen, who is here with us today, have also led countless study trips with students to India and China over the years. He served as chair of the Department of Business and played pivotal roles in measuring and growing the impact of business and accounting to the university through his leadership. Leonard also played key roles in framing the new School of Business, which opened just 3 years ago, and building the new MBA program, which I just talked about, and also leading that program. Leonard, thank you for all you have done, and congratulations on your award. It is very well deserved. Thank you, my colleague.
Thanks for joining us.
And now I want to turn it over to my colleague, Marilyn Stansberry, Professor of Accounting in the School of Business, for our Corporate Business Partner of the Year for 2024. Marilyn?
Thank you, Jim. It's my pleasure to introduce our Corporate Business Partner of the Year for 2024, Maynard Costerison. Maynard Costerison is a full-service public accounting firm with over 100 years of experience serving the Great Lakes regions as accountants and consultants. Over the years, they have become a valued partner with Calvin's accounting programs, working with both our undergraduate and Master of Accounting students. I asked some of our alumni who work at Manor what was one of the things that really drew them to Manor, that really stood out. Some of their comments included the supporting culture that allows us to grow both professionally and spiritually, encouraging us to use the talents God has given us to make a positive impact in our community. Others said, it's a great place to expand on what we learned at Calvin University, allowing us to utilize the gifts and knowledge that God has given us. Accepting the award on behalf of Manor today is their president, Trey Williams, so I'd like to invite him to the podium for some remarks.
All right. Well, sorry. Excuse me. Thanks, Marilyn. On behalf of the entire team at Manor, all 200 of us, we are certainly very, very appreciative of this recognition. In fact, when I say team, they're all, I was interested in the answers you might have. Table 3 up here. Raise your hand, guys. We're accountants. We recognize. Thank you. All of our prestigious Calvin University grads. But I do want to, Manor Costerison, we are offices here in Lansing and Grand Rapids, both here. Full service public accounting firm. We think it's the greatest profession. A lot of finance and accounting people here. But we have very much appreciated our partnership with Calvin University. I mean, it was brought up before, the mentoring, the career events, career fairs, clearly our internships, and a fantastic pipeline for excellent team members in the future. So thank you very much. We very much appreciate this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marilyn, and thank you very much, Trey. Thank you for all of your support over the years. And now it's my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker today, Jim King. Jim is the former COO, CFO, President and CEO of Steelcase. Prior to Steelcase, Jim was CFO at Cloud Group, a consultant with McKinsey & Company, and a board member of the Economics Club of Grand Rapids, the GVSU Foundation, BIFMA, and the Business Partners Roundtable, an association of chief executive officers of America's leading companies. After a highly successful 25-year career at Steelcase, Jim claims to have retired in 2022, but he's not doing a very good job of it. He remains active on several boards and as a director or trustee in several civic organizations. On the educational side, Jim holds a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from the University of Illinois and a Master's in Management from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. But perhaps the most important thing, the thing that is more important than Jim's many titles, accomplishments, and professional contributions is his passionate commitment to and skill in listening to and interacting with customers to learn, innovate, and build high engagement cultures that inspire excellence, meet market need, and drive sustainable growth. And that's what he'll be sharing with us today, his time-tested insights on how to build a learning organization as a competitive advantage. One last thing I want to say about Jim that speaks to his character and his generosity of spirit. He is doing this presentation today pro bono and has asked, and Bob Ames has agreed, instead to provide a scholarship to one of our accounting students in the School of Business this year. So Jim, thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and come on up. Let's have a conversation. I keep forgetting to advance the slide. This is where I need to be. So Jim, once again, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
My first question for you is, why are we here talking about organizational learning? You had a very successful 25-year career at Steelcase, and one of the big things you focused on was building a world-class learning organization, an organization that constantly leveraged learning to drive innovation and growth. So tell me about the topic of the logic behind a learning organization as a competitive advantage. How do you make a learning organization a competitive advantage? And what was the framework? How did you think about it, and why was it so important to you in Steelcase?
Well, and it didn't start off that way. You start off just trying to create a great organization that's more competitive. You know, you're trying to grow faster than your competitors. You're trying to win business. You're trying to do all the things that all of you are trying to do in business. But you know, this is a business school. Everybody here is familiar with the concept of compound interest, right? If your portfolio grows at 7% a year instead of 5% a year, and it does that for 5 years, you might notice it a little bit, but after 10 years, you notice it a lot more. And after 20 years, it really starts making a big difference. And I started thinking about that as we're thinking about building competitiveness. How do you use that principle? What if you could grow your company? What if you could grow the capabilities of your company just a little bit faster than your competitors? Sure, you're fighting to win that order today, but what if in the long run you could do that? And what if growth was not a matter of the buildings and the technology and this year's product, but it was really the capabilities of your organization, that you could have the capabilities of your organization grow a little bit faster than your competitors every year. What would happen after 5 or 10 years? Steelcase was a 75-year-old, 100-year-old company. How might that work out? So that became one of my challenges, and that's where kind of organizational learning came from. Like, if you could create an organization that learns. Notice this isn't about the CEO teaching. So it's not about CEOs as teacher. It's more like CEOs creating an organization that learns. Maybe it's through culture, and that became one of the challenges here. That it's not training I'm talking about here. It's not about creating a training program, but how do you create as a CEO? How do you create an organization that learns faster? What if instead of learning periodically from the things that happen to us, we could learn from everything that happened to us, every success, every failure? And I just had that kind of wonder. At Steelcase, we would say, how might we? How might we do that? And I'll give you one example. We were talking at the table about Greg's first day on the job. And I was thinking about my first day as CEO. So it happened as I was named CEO, had my first day as CEO, that we had leaders of Steelcase coming from all over the world for a leadership conference. And the communication people are coming to me saying, okay, this is your moment. You got to lay out the vision and the strategy and tell them all where we're headed and what are we going to do about this and that. And I certainly had all those ideas. I had things that we needed to talk about. But I worried that as you get to senior levels in an organization, you can get disconnected a bit from the culture of your company. The culture isn't what happens at senior management meetings. It's what's happening at lunch tables in factories and in client presentations here and there. And it's just, in a large company, it's easy to get disconnected. So I thought, how do we get connected before we start thinking about strategy? So we did something kind of daring. We had 150 people, as I said, and we broke them up into 75 teams of 2. Some of them are here and were part of this experiment, which is all it was. And the 75 teams of 2, we sent them out into the various Grand Rapids locations where we had 8 or 10 employees waiting for them. And those employees didn't work for them. So like the 2 leaders from operation would have to talk to the accounting department, or 2 leaders from sales would have to talk to somebody in engineering. And the leaders weren't there to teach anything. They only had 3 things they could say. They could say, what's getting better, what's getting worse, and how does it make you feel? And before we did that, I asked them as a group, like, tell us about the company. And leaders in a company are super positive and super optimistic about everything. They were so proud of this company, and they shouted out all these wonderful things that Steelcase was. It was all true, but it wasn't true for everyone. And so when they went out and they listened to people who were at these tables in factories and around the company, and they heard another perspective that maybe wasn't so positive and optimistic, that there were stories that were disappointing about our culture, stories that were sad, stories where you could feel the frustration in people's voices. And so when people came back, I asked them to share with each other what they had heard, and then sit in the room again and shout out what they had heard, and it was quite different. Yeah. And there was a new energy in the room, an energy that wasn't about how do we make things a little better, well, we need to change things, and what are we going to do about this? And now they're looking at the senior leaders saying, the other senior leaders saying, what are we going to do about this? We have to do something different. So an example of, again, trying not to be the CEO teaching, but more just the CEO creating an experience through which people might learn. And I had no idea what they were going to hear. You just got to trust that if we make that connection happen, that something interesting is going to come of it.
Yeah, great example. And so like learning all over the organization at every level and horizontally and vertically and through
That's
that
right.
process, yeah.
Exactly.
You know, one of the things that you said when we talked earlier is that you really had to shift your mindset through your career to see your job as CEO as essentially being Chief Culture Officer. A curator of culture, I think, is the language that you used. And, you know, your example there of going out and asking these questions to generate all kinds of new learning and dialogue in the organization is an example of that. But I'm just wondering if you could unpack that a little bit more. What does it mean to you, or what did it mean? Should it mean to leaders in this room to be a curator of culture, first and foremost, as a CEO?
Yeah. It's putting yourself in that position, but also doing it through a sense of humility. Some of the showcase people in the room, again, will recognize this. So there's this, we use metaphors a lot at the company. And the metaphor that first came to mind was like if you're curating something, maybe you're growing something, and maybe it's like a farmer. And we did use farming. We were talking about farming earlier at the table too, but farming is a metaphor for this. And the more I thought about it, though, I thought farmers, like when I close my eyes and think about a farmer is sitting in the tractor, up, driving through the fields, planting a lot of things at one time, maybe harvesting a lot of things at one time. Farms are super productive, but farms aren't the most resilient things in the world either. I mean, there's like one crop, right? If something bad happens to that crop or the price of that crop falls, then you're kind of out of business. And I started getting interested in thinking about it as gardening instead. So gardeners are much more humble about it. You know, the gardeners have lots of different things they grow. Gardeners just kind of watch, like, what's the sun doing this year? Like, which plant's doing well, which one's not doing as well. They're adapting as it rains more or it rains less. And I like the idea of like farmers are up in the tractor, but gardeners are on their hands and knees. So what if the metaphor for leaders is less farming and more gardening? And so how do you put yourself out there in your garden more often so you can see what's going on? And you can make choices. So like we're an office furniture company, so we made some office furniture related choices. One of those was we had a chance to redo our leadership community. This is where I sat and the top 15 or 20 vice presidents sat. And rather than having it be its own floor, we put it on the first floor of the building, and we ran the aisle of the building right through the middle of it. Security hated this idea, by the way. A lot of other people thought this was the craziest thing they ever heard. So why did we do that? We did it so that we didn't just periodically have a chance to talk to employees, but we could talk to people all day long as they were just making their way from one part of the building to another part of the building. We become more naturally accessible to them because they just get used to seeing us. Maybe they'll stop and have a conversation. And that certainly happened more and more. You can also kind of feel what's going on in the organization if it's passing through your office basically every day. Another choice we made like that you can also make is little things like where do you get your coffee? You know, we all get coffee in the morning. There was people who would have liked to have seen the coffee bar for the executives be in the executive area. You know, it's super efficient. We could just go get coffee. You know, if you came to visit, I could just give you a cup of coffee. But there's something about standing in line for coffee with people that aren't the people you work with day in, day out, where you have a chance to meet somebody. Maybe you just saw them in a meeting last week, and now this is your chance to go, hey, how's it going? Because culture doesn't happen. You can't call a meeting to talk about culture. Culture happens before meetings and after meetings. Culture happens in those little informal communications. You know, how often have you walked out of a meeting and you saw somebody do a great job, and you went, hey, let me just walk with you for a minute. So I want to tell you why that was so great. There's other times when maybe you want to just put your arm around the person and go, let me help you think about how you might have handled that situation next time. In a world of Zoom calls, it's really hard to do that. As a leader, if you call an employee after a meeting and say, let me tell you how you could have handled that situation differently, it's going to land with a thud. But if you're just going for a walk to get your coffee, it's a different kind of experience. So little things like this, like designing your space, designing your environment, designing your day to create more moments where you could have an informal interaction with somebody. And maybe that's the moment that was like the most important moment for them for that whole day.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So how do you disseminate that? How do you, that's you doing individual stuff. You moved the executive suite so that people could walk by you. You go to the coffee shop to talk to people. You go around and you do listening tours and ask people questions about how does it make you feel. But how do you build that into an entire organization so that everybody else is doing the same thing? What are the key things, the key steps or the key elements that you need to build into the
That's a
organization?
great question. It's, what you have to do is instill practices, and you can have your own individual practice, but eventually we would pick a few of these and go, these are actually practices we think should be taught and be followed universally around our company globally. And I'll give you a few examples of these. So one principle is preparation. So being prepared, if you're prepared for any experience you have, then at the end of the experience, you can talk about whether what you expected was going to happen actually happened, and that creates a learning opportunity. If you don't know what you expected, you can rationalize that whatever happened is exactly what you had in mind, right? So by talking about it up front, preparing, there's a phrase we use at Steelcase called evidence of success. So these guys are smiling at me back here because they're still using it. If I flew into Philadelphia and I'm traveling with a salesperson and we're walking into a customer, I've got the pre-read, I've read it, but as we're driving in the car, they know and I know that we're going to talk about evidence of success. What are we here to do today? And although it's tempting to think every time you go see a customer, you're there to ask for an order, usually that's not it. Usually you're just trying to advance 2 or 3 steps in the process. So maybe we want to broaden the relationships we have with this client. So maybe the evidence of success is we get to meet 2 or 3 other people. Maybe we want to ask them to do a prototype or to have a sample product installed so that they can learn from something like that. But there's got to be something specific that we're trying to get to today. That's why we're here. And then from that evidence of success, we can talk about what you're going to do, what I'm going to do. What's your role, what's my role? And as we get to 5 minutes left in the meeting, let's not forget that we're here to ask for that, if it still feels right. And so preparation is super important. And then you get to the kind of the next step, which today I'll call adaptive execution. So you're going through executing that meeting with the customer or whatever it might be. Maybe you're dealing with a crisis in the company. Things happen, you know. Tyson says everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the nose, right? So things go wrong, things change. How are you learning in the moment? How are you listening and fully present so that you're paying attention to what's happening? You know when it's time to change your playbook because it's not going to be about that today, it's going to be about something else. In crisis management, this is particularly important. It's tempting when you're an executive or a leader of any function and things go from bad to worse, to keep doing the things you do all the time. But everything you've got designed into your life, the reports you get, the way information comes to you, all that stuff, is designed for normal day-to-day stuff. When you're in a crisis, it's not normal anymore. Things are happening that are outside the normal parameters. And in the spirit of learning, what we learned from a CEO who came to visit us, he used the phrase, when you're in a crisis, you run to the roar. You run to the roar. That means you physically put yourself right in the middle of it. As messy as it is, as unthinkable as it is, it's the hardest thing sometimes for people to go, I have to buy a plane ticket and I've got to go there. So we had plenty of situations I could use as examples here. One of them was a situation we had in Germany where we had a factory that ran into some problems and then it shut down for a while and then that factory reopened, and when it reopened it had to catch up. And so it was running 3 shifts and it had a bunch of partially finished product that they finished quickly because they just had to do the last step. Well, all that finished goods inventory went downstream to a distribution center that was in Germany, and that distribution center got buried. So for those of you who study operations know what flow is in a distribution center. One piece flow and things pile up, then everything stops. And that's what was happening. And for the folks there, they'd never seen anything like it, but we had other people in the company who had seen things like it. And at first we were trying to manage this over video conferences and emails and things like we normally do. And finally, when we put people on airplanes and just stuck them in the middle of the problem, they could bring all that expertise and they could see what was really happening. Because they could learn, and then they could move more quickly and unclog that distribution center. So there's a lot of other examples of that, but adaptive execution. And then reflection. So something goes wrong, or something goes well. And I think a lot of times when we talk about learning, we think too much about failures and not enough about successes. You guys know, human behavior is we do better when we have successes rewarded and celebrated than we do when we have every failure kind of obsessed over. So balance these things out if you're thinking about how to do this. How do you spend as much time reflecting on what makes something successful, like #1 undergraduate teaching school in the country, 33% growth in the business school. It's tempting to go, good job, everybody. But it's better to go, like, why? Why? This guy used to ask me here in the front row. Why? Why is that happening? Why are we winning right now so much? What can we learn from that? And so adaptive execution is followed by reflection. And too often I think we can take easy answers to that too. So like if we won a customer, we lost a customer. Every time we won a customer, we would do these reviews and say, why did we win? And every time was because we had a great relationship with that customer. We understood them, they trusted us. And every time we lost, we heard, usually from our sales organization, that we lost on price. So, you listen and believe, and, occasionally we would go really low on price, not always on purpose. Sometimes we made a mistake, we would still lose. Or sometimes we had no relationship, and just, out of curiosity, we would go low on price, and we would still lose. So if we're losing on price, how come we never seem to win on price? How come we always win on relationship? And then it occurred to a few of us that I bet if you were in our competitors' debrief rooms, they're saying the same thing. Every time they win on relationship, and every time they lose on price. Okay, that's interesting. So every time we think we lost on price, we actually lost because someone else had a better relationship. And that was a big insight. Like, it really isn't the price. You have to be competitive, but it's really the quality of the relationship. And if you don't have the relationship, they're not going to tell you why you really lost. The easiest answer is you lost on price. And if you're too high on price, guess what? If you have a great relationship, the customer calls you and says, you got to do something. You got to help me out here. So you get some coaching to be where you need to be to win that job. So lessons like that. This is where senior people can actually make a big difference by sitting in that room for those debriefs and being able to kind of distill down what's really going on here. I call that relentless curiosity, just being super curious about what might really be going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Great. So preparation, adaptive execution, reflection or after action reviews, and relentless curiosity. And I love that last theme, relentless curiosity. I don't know if any of you have read the book by Carol Dweck, Growth Mindset. And she talks a little bit in that book about how we're just in love with the idea of accountability. But if we focus too much on accountability, it can lead to a performance mentality where I have to perform. If I don't, I'm going to get sanctioned. And that leads to a fixed mindset. Whereas if you have this relentless curiosity, it's when everything is just continuously learning, it opens up a growth mindset, which leads to learning across the organization and innovation in new and better ways.
And if I can just insert on that I think years ago there was this mindset in management that what leaders need to do is set goals, give people the tools they need, make sure they know the goals, get out of their way, and hold people accountable. And I think that is so weak. I mean, I think we're paying senior leaders way more than we need to be paying them if all they're doing is setting goals and giving people tools and holding them accountable. You got to be curious about, why are we winning? Why are we losing? And when you see the same playbook that used to win all the time, suddenly it's not winning anymore. It's not about holding people accountable. It's holding yourself accountable. You got to dig in now and try to really understand what's changed. What's the competitor doing they weren't doing before? How are the customer needs shifting? Or maybe our own capabilities aren't as strong as what they used to be. And that's kind of what I mean by the role of leaders in a organization that learns. Is you don't start with accountability. You start with curiosity.
Yeah, interesting. And holding your own self accountable.
Yeah.
Great. Jim, I know that you know that Calvin is a Christian university and that our mission is to equip our students to think deeply, act justly, and live wholeheartedly as Christ's agents of renewal in the world, including the world of business, as Pastor Holst pointed out so well in her prayer. As you think about the importance of building cultures of learning in organizations, how does that connect to your own faith journey? how do you make sense of the linkages between faith and building cultures of organizational learning?
Yeah. Well, lots of ways to answer that. I grew up studying the Bible, reading the Bible over my whole life, and there's so many lessons in there. And you think it's about one thing, and then you think more deeply about it. You realize there's a lot of lessons in there that go more broadly. So let's think about Jesus and 12 apostles. So Jesus is born into Judea. There is this massive religion, Judaism, that's established. There's this temple that's been there for 400 years. And you got the Roman Empire, which is this massive military political empire that's occupying Judea with massive armies. And Jesus has 3 years to build a new religion. And you think about the choice you can make. If you're in his staff meeting, so what are our options here? The head of strategy says, well, we're going to need a building, first of all, right? That's the first thing. If we need a building, we're going to need funds. We're going to need to do some fundraising, serious fundraising to build that building. And we're going to need like a social media thing or some way to spread the word. And so instead of that, he just gets 12 ordinary men. He walks around Judea and tells parables and shares principles and distills learnings from things that are happening every day. Somebody comes up to me, we have this interaction, here's the lesson from that. It's really, instead of choosing assets, instead of choosing buildings and strength and armies and whatever else you might have thought you would need, he chooses learning. 12, I'm going to believe that in 3 years I can teach these 12 men enough that when I'm gone, of course he knows how the story's going to end, when I'm gone, they will somehow be able to create essentially a new religion. You go, that's impossible. How could that But think again, compound interest. What if those 12 men learned enough and continue to learn enough through the way he taught them to teach and the way he taught them to learn that they actually could, over the long run, win? Well, 50 years later, that temple in Jerusalem is gone because the Roman Empire took it down. 350 years later, the Roman Empire adopts what? Christianity as its religion. This is the Roman Empire that would have crushed Christianity back in the early days. And 100 years after that, the Roman Empire is gone and Christianity lives on. So there's a lesson there, I think, about instead of it being always the assets and the resources and the tools and the technology, it's the people and it's your investment in learning. So that's where I get some comfort in that there are some principles that are relevant to today's talk.
Very cool.
Always, and that's just one example.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for that. It's about time to move to Q&A, but I have one last question for you. When you were meeting with Bob and Kristen and me earlier, you said that as leaders, we need to set the tone for learning in our own organizations. And I'm just curious, what are some of the things that you do personally, things that perhaps we can do personally on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis to help set the tone for learning and innovation in our organizations?
Yeah, and I would meet with interns sometimes at Steelcase, and I get a chance to talk with them about this. But we all have practices. It might be things. Think about things you do every day. So it might be a commitment to faith. So you might pray every day. It might be a commitment to exercise. You might go to the gym every day, or nutrition, or time spent with family members, or whatever it is for you. There's practices that you've embedded in your life. After you get going at it for a while, you don't think about it anymore. It's just what you do. It's how you wake up. It's what you do after you wake up. It's what you do when you get home from work or after work. And so for me, during the day, I'm always kind of listening for things that I sort of understand, but I don't completely understand. And I kind of make a mental note of it. And at the end of the day, this is just a simple thing. It's kind of stupid to talk about. But when I'm at my computer, I'll make a point of going and spending just 5 or 10 minutes. It used to be Google search, now it's AI tools. Saying, tell me more about this. Or I heard about this, is that really true? Is there more to that story? And I learn in 5 or 10 minutes something. Or it could be something as stupid, like this morning I was just sitting getting ready for today and I was looking out in the backyard and it was a bird I never saw before. And so I took my camera and took a picture of the bird and uploaded it to Google Photos and then hit Lens, and it tells me the name of the bird, which I can't remember right now. A thrasher. It's a thrasher. And I don't know why. I don't know if that'll ever be useful for me, but I'll tell you what, if you learn 2 or 3 things every day, and you do that every single day for a year, and then you do it every single day for a career, you'll be surprised how it starts to add up. And suddenly you know a little bit about a lot of stuff that comes in handy. So that's maybe one example. And everybody should do their own thing, but I recommend that to people.
Yeah, great, great. Well, thank you very much, Jim. Thank you for all of your insights into how to build learning into your own life and into your organization. We now want to open things up to Q&A with the audience, so let's do that. Who's got a question for Jim? And Bob Ames has got a microphone. Is there another one? Kristen Groom has got a microphone, so just raise your hand and they'll come to you. Don't be shy.
What do you miss most about your former career? What urge do you have?
What do I miss most?
Yeah, go ahead.
You
So,
want to repeat the question?
what do I miss most about my former career? So, I miss the people. So that's the first thing. You develop relationships with people. I had to make a tough call when I left, which was to largely separate myself from the company, because when you are CEO for too long, you end up being a too easy source of a second opinion if you stay connected with people. And that was the toughest thing. Like almost any other job, I wouldn't have had to really do that. But because it was that job, I said, I don't want to be on the board. And I have to let the new CEO be the new CEO and not have me kind of hanging around. And that was tough. But I still have friends there who are great friends. So I miss that part of it. And you know, I guess one fear I have, which isn't exactly what you asked, but when you're in that world and you're there every day and there's like this relentless flow of new challenges and new things happening in the world of business, as exhausting as it is, it keeps you sharp. And what you worry about when you step away is that I can do my Google searches and read the Wall Street Journal and be on 2 boards. Am I as sharp as I was? Have I lost something? Have I lost a step? So I have this kind of a little bit of a fear of that. But I am committed to learning, so that's my way of trying to have that be the antidote. Good question.
Great. Who else? Up here, Bob.
What was the lesson that you've learned as a CEO that you wish you learned earlier?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say when you are suddenly thrust into a position of authority, we were talking about this with Greg a little bit, but everyone expects you to kind of come out like, Batman, that you're going to have all the answers to all the questions. And as much as I try to focus on culture, as much as I try to think about farming and gardening, in the beginning, I just felt that the organization was seeking answers, and I could help them by just making decisions and helping them move past some of these places of impasse. And maybe that wasn't such a bad decision, because when an organization's trying to move forward, they maybe need a little bit of that. But the honest answer to your question is that I wish I was pivoting from that mode to a different mode sooner than I did. I did within the first couple of years, but it took me a year or two to finally have the confidence to go, I don't know the answer, but I know how we could find out. And so let's instead create. So an example of this is, so because of things happening in our company and around our industry, we had to suddenly develop way more products than we ever were asked to develop before. Like everyone was shifting from one way to work to a new way of working, and there was ancillary furniture and all this other stuff going on. So we did the math and went, wow, like we don't have the capacity to do that much product development. And meanwhile, our product development engine wasn't moving as quickly as we would like. And so you go to certain meetings and people would go, we need more urgency. The product development people don't seem to understand that we have to get products out the door fast. Or we need more resources. We need like 100 more engineers. Or everyone had like an idea about how to fix that. And so none of them felt like quite right. So a few of us went out and talked to product development people, and we sat in rooms. We kind of replicated that first day of my job and did it in small groups called roundtables. So we'd have these meetings with folks. And we'd say, what's getting better, what's getting worse, how does it make you feel about product development? And what hit me, first of all, is that nobody felt more urgency than the people who were sitting in that room. As much as the senior folks kind of felt that they were urgent and everyone else wasn't urgent enough, these people were really frustrated because they're trying to get their products done and there's things getting in their way that was part of being part of a big company. And it wasn't really about more resources. It was about having the right resources at the right time in the room with them to make the decisions. It was also things like you have all these people representing different functions in the room, but they all reported to somebody up here. And they were all told by those people, whatever you do, don't agree to this. Well, now they're sitting in this room where they're never going to reach agreement because they don't have the right to change that person's mind, and they all have to go talk to that person after the meeting. So it was stuff like that. And one person in the room said this thing. He goes, I used to work for a small company. I did product development in a small company, and that was great, but I would never go back because you have all these resources now in a big company, test labs and quality, all this, patent experts. I mean, that's amazing. Would have given anything for that. But sometimes I wish we could have all the resources of a big company and make it feel like we were still in a small company. And then the conversation moved on, and I kind of jotted that down. But that was it. Like, that was the idea. Like, how do we make that happen? It sounds impossible, right? Like it's like paradox or something. It's impossible. And I didn't know how to solve it. This is the part about like realizing I don't have all the answers. But I knew who could, and so I picked a few of the folks who are leaders in product development and asked them to take that phrase and now go work on that and figure out what we can do about that. And from that, they came up with a whole different model of product development that involves small teams and so on. And then we did hire more resources, but into that new model that was way more efficient than the old model. And then we were able to deliver more products than we'd ever delivered ever before. And I wonder if in my first year as CEO if I would have done that. So thank you for that.
Jim, thank you. We're going to have to stop the questions at this point. But I just want us all to give a very big round of applause to Jim. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your insight. It's great to have you here.
Thank you all.
Jim will be hanging around for a little while after the event, so if you have more questions or want to just connect with him, come on up. And with that, I want to turn it over to Jeff Haverdink, who is our Director of Alumni Relations, for a few closing comments. Jeff? Thanks.
Well, fantastic. What a great afternoon. And Jim, thank you again. I mean, pearls of wisdom there, right? For all of us who are leaders of people and developing culture. That could have gone on for a while longer. It was great. So thank you. And want to thank Jim Ludema as well and the whole School of Business team, right? What an excellent event. First class again today. So thanks to all those that made it possible. And none of this would be possible without our sponsors. So want to thank again our event sponsors today, CCIB, In On Time, thank you. And all the many table sponsors as well, right? You know who you are. Make sure you thank them for being a part of this because we couldn't do it without you. So just great to have you participate with this. Just two quick reminders before we depart today. We've got some fun things coming up here. Next weekend, Homecoming and Family Weekend at Calvin. It's going to be a great weekend. If you haven't seen the back of your program yet, there's a QR code there. We have got a lot of activities happening here on campus. Friday night, all day Saturday. I got to highlight this one. So Friday night, we are having a massive cornhole tournament. They're literally $1,000 to the winning team. So Caparis, you and I should be practicing right now. But if you want to come, it's open to all. So that's Friday evening. Inside baseball in the alumni office, we always try to figure out what to program on Saturday afternoons. That problem is solved. Football will be happening. Calvin's very first home football homecoming game will be that Saturday afternoon. So check out the QR code. That's right. Go Knights. Thank you, Scott. So check out the QR code. We'd love to have you back. And then mark your calendars as well. November 15, that's a Friday, Executive Breakfast Series meeting right here in the PCC. We have Dr. Lidaway Vandersloos, who is our 2024-25 William Spoolhoff Teacher and Scholar Residence Chair. I had to practice that one. She is coming back and forth from the Netherlands several times throughout the year. She'll be talking about the future of leadership. And she's been in this industry for 30 years. I noted she's the advisor to the chief of the Royal Netherlands Air Force on talent acquisition and so forth. So sounds like phenomenal experiences. We'd love to have you back here Friday, the 15th of November at 7 a.m. Before you go, if you wouldn't mind leaving your name tags with us at the table, we'll reuse those for the next event. But again, thank you all for coming. We're grateful to have your partnership. We're grateful that you were here, and now enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.